The Institute for the Study of Peak States presents the 4th International Psychoimmunology and Psychobiology Research Symposium. ISPS Highlights by Shayne McKenzie, CEO.
So I'm going to go through the key thing I wanted to share here to give you a bit of context, particularly for the three Institute staff's presentations around what our key focus has been over the last year or two. So I want to highlight some of the key things, but I'll give a broader context around a bit of background on the Institute in case this is the first time you've joined one of our research symposiums, as well as a bit of history as to how we got here, and then I'll kind of focus on what the main focus has been the last year or two. So the Institute is predominantly a research organisation. That's what Grant's focus has been all along. But it now kind of has four major, I guess, kind of like departments, I guess, or areas of business focus. So research is the key area, and so they've got degrees from science, medicine, psychology, and the key focus here is using the biology-based models that Grant and the research team have developed, and using that to come up with new techniques to either resolve personal issues that people have in their life, or to help people get into new states of consciousness, or, as I said, key focus now is helping people eliminate diseases that they actually have. Now, as part of the research testing, the way Grant structured the organisation was that part of the safety testing, which is doing testing with healthy individuals, was to train certified therapists so they understood our model and how to use our techniques, so they could actually then be testing the new treatments that were coming out of the research team. We then have a training team that is then training certified therapists in the published techniques that are being released from the research team. So they're highly experienced trainers, long-term commitment to what the Institute is all about, and highly aligned to the values and the vision of the Institute. Have been selected as trainers because they're really effective at being therapists, and as well as then assessing the graduates of the training courses for them to become certified therapists. So then we actually have certified therapists who, as a certified therapist, they can just be independent therapists. Probably about half of our certified therapists are just independent certified therapists. So they're doing their own marketing, they develop their own specializations that they want to focus on as far as what clients they're working with. And there's two kind of broad areas that certified therapists can work in. So one's around trauma therapy. So this is more helping people with life issues, whether it's relationship issues or depression or anxiety or chronic pain. Pretty much any kind of life issue you got, there's usually a technique that we've got to actually. There are definitely some things that we can't help with, and you can talk to a certified therapist around if there's a particular issue you want to work on. So that's the trauma therapy area, and anyone who does any work with us, whether they're a certified trauma therapist, a peak states therapist, or a clinic staff member, they have to learn our model and learn the trauma therapy techniques to start with, because that's the basis of all of the treatments that we have. And then some can choose to then go on and become certified peak states therapists, which is then helping our clients get into peak states of consciousness, like silent mind or inner peace, or being able to see your optimal life path. And then we have our clinic treatment. So a lot of the new treatments, as they're released from research, usually start in the clinic team, because it's a small focused team. We get good feedback from them as to whether anything unusual happens with a new process that's been released. But then eventually, the goal is to have everything then go out to certified therapists. There are a few things that will probably stay in the clinic that are probably a little bit more medical in nature. So at the moment, we actually only have 3 treatments in our clinics. So we've got a process for Asperger's syndrome, one that's when someone has an issue around the loss of a role or loss of identity, and there's a real kind of panic around that, where there's a process we have for that. And then we also have a process around ADHD or ADD. So that's kind of the 4 main areas. And so I'm going to go through each of those 3 areas to give you a little bit of an update as to what's been the key changes over the last year or 2. So as I was saying, none of this would be possible without our founder, Dr. Grant McKenzie. So he had an engineering degree from Stanford University, was taught engineering at California State University, but then, and he was born with a peak state called Beauty Way, and had this for most of his life, and many of his family members did as well. So to him, this was kind of a little bit normal. He could tell that other people seemed to be suffering in ways that weren't optimal, but and because of that, probably from about 15 years old, he was wondering, how we'd be able to help others. I guess he didn't realize how much of a difference was until he was 29 and actually lost the Beauty Way state. And so that became a major life shift and a major career shift for him, because that then started the journey to work out how to get this peak state back in kind of typical Grant style. There was a part of him who was excited about the fact that he lost it, because that meant it wasn't genetic, and therefore it meant it was probably possible that it would be able to work out how to get it back. Now that was over 30 years ago now that happened, that he decided to change career, and he hasn't quite cracked that yet, but we're getting very close. So there's many books that Grant's released. Each one of them's kind of got a key breakthrough that he's discovered along the way on this journey. So let me go through now the 4 areas of our organization. So as I said, the key focus is research. And for the past 2 years, the key area we've been focusing on is making sure that our psychoimmunology treatments are stable and as easy as possible to do. So I'll give a little background as to why that's the case. So kind of in the earlier days, and this is probably going back, so my time with the Institute is about 16 years, I think it is. So this is just in my time that I was here. And so there was, and even the research team has kind of changed over time. So there were a number of people even earlier than what I've got listed on the page here. So Wes Geets, as a guest speaker here today, was in the research team in the very early days. Our medical director, Dr. Mary Palacier, was in the research team in those early days as well as a few other people as well. But probably about 10 years ago, the core research team back then, it wasn't called the psychobiology research team, but in hindsight, that's what we would now call it, given our focus is a lot now on psychoimmunology. So they were developing a lot of treatments where, in really simple terms, the key things that they were doing a lot of the times was there was a particular problem they were trying to solve. They're regressing back using our regression technique called wholehearted healing, and using their ability to kind of see what was happening with individuals as they did healing at particular prenatal events, and use that approach to develop new treatments, as well as processes for peak states therapy as well. So most of those people are not working in the research team now, but really want to acknowledge them because they really laid a great foundation for where we are today. And then 2 or 3 years ago, so just before COVID started to hit, Grant decided it was time for us to start working on psychoimmunology. He was probably planning on doing it, but we brought the time frame a little bit forward when COVID hit. And so that was the first thing that we actually tried to develop a treatment for using our psychoimmunology approach. And so we had some success with that, as well as a number of other treatments. So OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, Lyme disease, traumatic brain injury. So there was a few things that were getting good results with that psychoimmunology approach. Kirsten and Grant came up with a framework for how to develop these psychoimmunology treatments. And so it meant that there was an opportunity to actually train other people in this framework so that they could be doing some of the treatment development and applied research, that it didn't have to rely on just Kirsten, Grant, and Mary to actually do that. So we had quite a few people involved back then. But we were getting really good results. But after a few months, we were starting to see that some people were reporting that the results weren't stable. And everything we do is pay for results, or we're all about getting to the root cause of the issue and making sure that the outcome is permanent for our clients. So this was not what we wanted to see from a client. So it meant that we had to do some more research and figure out what was actually going on. So probably for the last 2 years now, the research team has really shrunk down to the core. So it's just been Kirsten, Grant, and Mary who have been doing research, trying to figure out why is it that our psychoimmunology treatments weren't always permanent. So some people did seem to be getting permanent results, but not everyone was, and that's not what we were. So we knew there was something else to learn. So there was some resistance to for people to actually use the method that we come up with. And the core part of that framework is still the same, but we've now got some additional steps to make sure that it's going to be addresses that resistance issue, and it's going to make sure that it's going to be a permanent outcome. So that's part of the reason why within the Institute, they're the only 3 presenting today, because the rest of the team actually hasn't been doing any research development or research testing. So then the next team, our training team. So we just got the 4 trainers all over the world. So Naomi Nath is based in Australia. She was actually one of the 3 trainers, along with Grant and Samsara, who trained me back in, I think it was 2007 or 8. So her key focus at the moment is training therapists in Russia. At the moment, that's being done with translation. She doesn't speak Russian. But she's developing someone who is Russian so that at some time in the near future, the trainings will be delivered completely in Russian. It's actually being delivered partly in Russian, as he's co-facilitating with Naomi at the moment. So that's Edward Sorodo. She's originally German, so she can deliver them in German, but she's also developing Astrid Paulini as a trainer as well, so that sometime in the future, she'll be able to deliver trainings in German as well. And being in Australia for such a long time now, she obviously speaks English, and so delivers training in English as well. Then we've got Agata Szaplinska. So she's Polish, but she's living in the Canary Islands, so she can deliver, she mainly does trainings in Polish, but she does deliver trainings in Spanish as well. She could do trainings in English, but I'm not sure whether she ever has. Then I'm technically based in Australia, but I've been traveling around the world probably for about 6 years now, for most of my time as the CEO. So I only speak English, and I have done a number of trainings with translation, but the goal is to actually get all of our trainings done in the native language of the students. And then Dr. Celine Grand is based in Switzerland. She's a French speaker, so she mainly does trainings in French, but she can do them in English as well. Before COVID hit, everyone else was kind of delivering online, but I was kind of the only one who was traveling around the world to kind of help grow the business by delivering trainings face-to-face. So I'm not going to remember all of them off the top of my head, but I went to the US and Canada, Germany, Sweden, Morocco, Egypt, and possibly some other countries as well. But obviously then once COVID hit, we've all been delivering training online now, and now that's what we all do. The content in the trauma therapy has been pretty stable now. Back in the early days, it was almost getting updated every year as the research team was making new discoveries. So there hasn't been a great deal of change from a training perspective. One of the things we did a few years ago is we separated out the trauma therapy training and the peak states therapy training, which used to be done together because it was about a month full time to be able to do that, and doing it all at once is logistically challenging and very intense. So most of the time it's getting spread out over, maybe just doing 1, 2, or 3 classes a week, which then means it's kind of 4 to 12 months that people are taking to go through just the trauma therapy component, let alone the peak states therapy training. So we separated those. So the only thing really in the last year that we've kind of been adding to the or testing from the training perspective is Grant always wrote the training in modular format, even though it was always delivered as one full training. So a few years ago, we started delivering just the first 5 classes, the first 15 hours of the trauma therapy training, which gives you kind of the key models, the 3 main gene traumas, simple gene traumas, and techniques to be able to heal those. And about 70% of the time, that's pretty much all you need to help clients, has been our experience. So it's a really good foundation for people to kind of get a good taste of what our work is about. So we've been doing that for probably 2 or 3 years and getting really good feedback from that. For some people, that's just great additional tools to add to their toolkit, whether they're, our focus has generally been therapists, but there's probably been some coaches who could use that for things like, eliminating limiting beliefs and things like that, or emotional upsets, which is really helpful for their clients as well. And that was kind of all they needed. But for a number of people, it was also around getting a taste of this work. And then as they saw how much of a difference it made in just that 15 hours, probably more than half of the people doing that foundational course then wanted to experience more of the training. So this year I've been piloting delivering the trauma therapy training in modules, where you can kind of just choose each module one at a time. There's an order that you have to go through, but there's not a commitment to do the entire training. You can just choose each one. So I've been getting really good feedback on that, and we'll wait until we've gone through the whole trauma therapy curriculum to see whether there's any improvements to that. But that's pretty much been the only key change in training in the last year or so. From a therapist perspective, we've got certified therapists all over the world. So you can kind of see on the map that they're everywhere. So at the moment, we've got about 65 certified therapists in 17 countries in 12 different languages. So in the early days, when I talked about Grant was only training certified therapists as part of the research testing, it was a lot easier to just do that in English. But now that we've got a focus on not just training people to be research testers, but also to just get this great work out to as many people as possible who need it, to then become much more global. So there's a real focus on getting trainers and assessors and clinic staff all trained in, I guess ideally all the main languages around the world. So we're up to 12, still a few more to go. From a clinic perspective, as I said, we've only got a few treatments, clinic treatments at the moment based on a psychobiology perspective. But with the research that the core research teams have been doing over the last couple of years, we think we're going to have a lot more clinic treatments fairly soon. So certainly ones that should be ready this year, and so not too far away, is going to be ones that we already had before, and we just needed to make sure that we had a way of making sure that the results were going to be permanent. So that was obsessive compulsive disorder, Lyme disease, traumatic brain injury, and COVID-19, but not for COVID clients that had hypoxia. The current research is around Beauty Way, COVID-19 with hypoxia, symptoms, type 1 diabetes, autism, smoking addiction. There's many more, but they're kind of some of the more kind of active ones. And then the future research is very, very long, but just to give you an example of some of the things that we think are going to be possible with this psychoimmunology approach: Parkinson's disease, MS, Alzheimer's, dementia, HIV, and many, many more. So this is from, I guess, a business perspective, this is where there's really exciting field coming up, and hopefully will actually make us a financially sustainable organization going forward, so that I would love to be able to pay our research team sometime in the near future. They deserve it. Okay, so that's kind of the highlights from me. There's lots of ways to get information depending on what your interest is. So our main website, which is our research site, is peakstates.com. Our training website is subcellularpsychobiology.com. Our clinic treatments is peakstatesclinics.com. And if you want to find a therapist for trauma therapy or Peak States therapy, then you can go to peakstatestherapy.com. We've got a YouTube channel, we've got a Facebook page, and if you wanted to contact me personally, like many of our institute staff, we've all got at peakstates.com, and so Shayne with a Y at peakstates.com.
Thank you for watching. For more information, please visit www.peakstates.com.